Welcome to the Roadmap to Secure Love. In today's episode, Kim and Kyle explore how partners experiencing lower libido can reconnect with their bodies and address desire discrepancies by creating space for pleasure in their daily lives. Let's dive in.
So Kim and I have been doing this series on desire discrepancy for romantic partners and relationships. And we did an episode talking just about desire discrepancy and the cycle. We did an episode talking about the high libido partner. And today we really want to talk about the partner who might identify as having a lower libido and really get to help them explore what goes on for their body, understand kind of the cycle and what goes on for them, and what they can do to have a different experience in this pattern with their partner.
Mhm. Kyle, when people come to me and they say that they have low libido and they're the one in the relationship who has the lower desire, they often come to me saying that they feel broken,
Mhm.
right? That something is wrong with me.
Mhm.
And I hope after listening today that you realize that nothing is wrong with you, right? That you're not broken. What has happened though is that we are so busy in life that the stress of everyday living is anything but erotic. There's no space for that
Yeah.
for somebody who has a low libido. There's no space for it.
Mhm.
The mental load that people carry is intense. And Kyle, can you tell us a little bit more about the mental load? The-
Yeah, particularly for um, people who identify having low libido, is they're very busy, they're very productive, they're focused on getting a lot done at work, they're pretty preoccupied with their work projects or what's going on at home and what's going on in the kids' lives, and they're holding all this stuff really up in their head, right? And they can be really successful, they can be really good parents, but there's not much space for them. And so one of the things that makes it so hard, and just as Kim said, you're not broken. Your body functions in a totally normal and healthy way. This episode is to help you understand your body and to do things to honor your body. Because one of the things I know when I get super busy, I'm up in my head, 10 steps ahead. What are all the things I got to get done? I'm not tuning into the anxiety in my chest. I'm not making space to sit on the couch or sit out on my porch and enjoy my sip of coffee and savor that moment. I'm going, okay, what's the next thing I do? What's the next thing I gotta do? And that's leaving no space for me to be in my body and experience the delight of pleasure that is necessary to start to cultivate more of an erotic context for ourselves.
Yeah. And you think about, I don't know, I'm sure this happens to you with your clients too, when we're talking about low desire. It's like, I don't want sex. Don't want sex. I don't want sex. I don't want intimacy when they're at home. But
Mhm.
then they go on vacation and they have the best sex of their lives,
Mhm.
right? It's because we're having, and I like a term that you always say is non-productivity time.
Mhm.
Right? We're not thinking about what's next. We're not thinking about what job we have to do. What about the laundry, the dishes, the assignment at work, the kids, the neighbor, the lawn?
Mhm.
We're just thinking about which beach are we going to go lay out on?
Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
and that gives us space to delight in the here and now, be in our bodies, to relax. Right. And that's one of the big things for those of us with lower libido is we need to have space for our pleasure. And that's why vacation is such a great context because we don't have all these erotic breaks that go stress, 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 stress,
Right.
which is like pulling an e-brake on our eroticism and we don't even feel it because we're jammed up. Right? Whereas being in a context that's about relaxation and being in a context on vacation that's about laying out on the beach and relaxing, all of a sudden gives space for kind of our gas pedal, our eroticism to come back online. It gives us space to not be in an environment of all those stressors.
Yeah. Well, what do we do? Because we can't live on vacation all the time.
I wish we could.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be so nice. But the thing is we have to transport the beach to our home,
Mm,
right? And this is one of the big things I learned in my individual therapy is how do I take the sensations or the experience I had on the beach, right? I can visualize being on the beach, hands out, legs out, and just falling asleep. It's just lovely. But how do I create that in my home? How do I create that with all this busyness and all this productivity that I feel like I have to do to be a good partner, a good family member, a good dad, a good business owner so that my family's okay? Well, to do that, we have to make space using boundaries for our own pleasure and time for ourselves. Kim, what does that look like?
I love that. I love being in the here and now. I love that wording. Here and now, how do I carve out pleasure
Mhm.
for myself? And I gotta tell you, we've got to fight for that. World to pressure accomplishments, messages that we get from our parents and our bosses and our society does not say relax. It says keep busy and keep achieving.
Mhm.
There's nothing erotic about that. So we have to fight for pleasure
Mhm.
just as much as we fight for accomplishments. We fight for our kids, we fight for our spouses, we fight for the lawn looking good. Um, we have to fight for ourselves. Yeah.
And what does it look like to fight for ourselves, to fight for our pleasure?
First of all, we've got to identify what really gets us to the place where we are not productive and it's life giving.
Mhm.
So that might mean you said laying on the beach, yeah? Well,
Mhm.
what would it look like if you laid on the grass outside, if it's warm and like the grass isn't wet, all the
Mhm.
things.
Mhm.
And you just laid out there
Mhm.
for 5 minutes and you said, nobody talk to me.
Mhm.
This is just me time.
Mhm.
What does it look like to you get our nails done, pedicures? What does it look like to play basketball? What does it look like to move our bodies? What does it look like to read a book
Mhm.
with hot cocoa and just go somewhere?
Mhm. I think what's so important, people are like, well, this has nothing to do with the bedroom. It's nothing to do with eroticism or sex. And that's actually not true, right? When we make space for our pleasure, we make space for being in our bodies, it creates space for us to connect with sensations in our bodies and allows us to have space to also be erotic. But we have to first make space for these other ways of experiencing pleasure and prioritizing pleasure. One of the things I loved about my sex therapy education, one of my professors encouraged us to spend 2 weeks at the start of our class talking about what was pleasurable, right? And a lot of people were like, "Oh, like when I was petting my dog, it was pleasurable." No, it wasn't erotic, but it was pleasurable to feel their fur, right? Or eating an ice cream was really pleasurable, or being able to snuggle on my couch was really pleasurable. And so it started getting us focused on not what's the thing I got to do at 7 p.m. tomorrow night, but on here and now, what actually is feeling really good? What does my body enjoy? What is really nice about this moment?
Yeah.
And it, go ahead, Kim.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you because I was just thinking about the steps that you're saying, which is so beautiful, right? Like, number one, we've got to make time for ourselves to just be not productive.
Mm.
Two, we've got to step in to what's pleasurable, whatever that is, food, touch, sounds, sensations, right?
Mhm.
And then it opens up the door for this eroticness to kind of open up because we're not so preoccupied with other things.
Mhm.
So then the next step for me is to help people do things that make them feel sexy. So you're relaxed, You found out what makes things pleasurable. Now, what makes you feel sexy?
Mhm.
Wearing lingerie, wearing a tight, you know, white shirt at the gym. I don't know.
Mhm.
What makes people feel like I am a badass and I am sexy and I feel good in my body,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, I mean, this is what's so important is particularly especially if we have all these messages about being a low libido partner, we get a message that something's wrong with us, we're broken, we're not a sexy person, we're not erotic. And again, there's nothing wrong with you.
Mhm.
It is the context in which we live where there's not space or boundaries for our own pleasure, and we grew up living that and experiencing that. And so by fighting for our pleasure, making space for that, then this last piece that Kim's talking about, how do we start to step into an identity of being deliciously erotic? That's ours. What is it that makes me feel empowered? What is it that makes me feel sexy within our bodies? Right? But this goes back to if we have experience with focusing on pleasure in other ways, that becomes a little bit more, that becomes easier to lean into. And we are able to do that. The other thing I just want to note on pleasure, when I first started down that journey, I was like, oh, it's pleasurable. I'm going to eat 5 candy bars right now, and I'm just going to scarf it down and really get through it. And then I'd feel sick, and it wasn't the best experience, right? And so even when we're taking time for pleasure, you want to focus on the sensations that you feel, right? So it's not just, oh, I had 4 candy bars. It's how did each bite taste?
Mm,
What did I enjoy about each bite of that candy bar? How did I feel in my body? It's really slowing down and not trying to get through things, right? Same thing with ordering pizza. For me, that was a big thing. I'm gonna order pizza. I'm treating myself. I eat a whole thing of pizza, but I wasn't really enjoying the bites. I wasn't enjoying the taste of it. And so that's the thing that really helped me shift is what the thing we're doing, even if it's holding our coffee and just smelling it, that is being in our body, in the sensation, in the here and now with what we are doing.
yes.
And if we can do that well, that makes it easier to lean into connecting with the part of us that can be erotic and empowered and have an identity of being an erotic person because it starts from within our bodies, not within our heads and all the to-do lists that we have.
So can I just repeat something that is like the coolest thing you said?
Go for it.
Which was deliciously erotic.
Mhm,
That's mine.
mhm,
That's mine to own.
mhm,
That's the goal. It's to look at ourselves and say, I am deliciously erotic, and that's mine to
mhm.
own.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had a few of my clients who have, regardless of their gender, step into that, right? I know one individual was really talking about feeling like a queen, right? Really stepping into that sense of empowerment and being sexy. And so like that's just it, is that opened up by focusing on pleasure in these smaller ways, it opened up for them to experience the sense of empowerment and connect with what's sexy about them, not what's sexy for their partner. Right. And that's what we talked about in our episode on desire discrepancy. The lower libido partner gets these messages of brokenness or shame, and they end up focusing on the pleasure of their partner, not their own.
Mhm.
And what we're really fighting for in this episode is getting you to focus on your pleasure, prioritize it, because that's really what's going to help you feel erotic and also help your partner feel connected with that erotic part of you, which is often what they're pushing for in that really negative pattern.
Yeah, we want you to fight for it.
Mhm.
We want you to fight for non-productivity time. And I think I just totally blew up that word. How do you say that word?
Non-productivity time. You got it.
Non-productivity time. I got it. Yay. That word. Yeah, y'all, that word. We want to do that.
Mhm.
And then we want to be able to talk about now that I'm not busy, what is pleasurable for me?
Mhm.
And I'm going to fight to get that. And then how do I step into, for myself, what it means to be deliciously erotic? I like it.
I like it too.
In today's episode, we learned how to 1. Prioritize pleasure, 2. Reconnect with your body, and 3. Fight against the pressures of constant productivity to create space for intimacy and pleasure. Remember, embracing your erotic identity starts with making time for yourself. Follow the roadmap to secure love on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. To learn practical tools for building secure connections, sign up for the Secure Attachment Path course in the show notes. Until next time, stay connected and keep listening with love.